Hello and welcome to the Fish Keeper Show, a webcast covering the how-to for the breeding and raising of tropical freshwater fish. I'm your host, Tim Stanton.
And I'm Jeremy Basch, and today we're discussing the breeding of Betta Splendens.
This show's to help provide a path for you in achieving success in the breeding and raising of tropical freshwater fish. As in any journey, there's different paths to the same destination.
This is true with tropical fish breeding. The methods described here are one way to achieve success.
This is our first in the initial episodes of our season. Other shows are going to cover such tropical fish as live bears, barbs, danios, and even tetras.
Also included are Old World and New World cichlids, killifish of all types, catfish, and loaches too.
That's right. In our introduction, we covered the 8 triggers that possibly could lead to breeding of your tropical freshwater fish. We talked about changes in temperature of the water, the direction of the temperature change is dependent on the species. We also talked about changes in water depth and how that could affect breeding habits of your fish. Changes in feeding habits, increase of live food availability. Changes in tank meats, sometimes separation or rejoining the male and female will often trigger spawning.
We also discussed changes in water quality, pH, matching those that for the species that are found in the wild, change in light, a change in decoration, sometimes adding something in the aquarium to a platform for the fish species to spawn on helps them in breeding. Tank decorations, that kind of falls into place also with everything. And then, of course, a healthy ecosystem overall, making sure that you have a nice ecosystem for the fish to live in for your aquarium or even your pond.
Yep. So, Jeremy, why don't you tell us about anabantoids?
Yeah, anabantoids are part of the order of the perch family. Anabantoids are also known as labyrinth fish, and they get that name from the special organ that allows them to breathe atmospheric air. They can be found in Southeast Asia and much of Africa. In Africa, they're usually found in the form of tenopoma and even climbing perch. They live in typically slow-flowing, low-oxygen waters, hence their ability to breathe air.
That's right. Let's talk about primary diet of anabantoids. It consists of species whose diet is primarily anywhere from vegetarian to ones that are primarily carnivorous. Vegetarians usually eat plant materials, detritus, and other debris algae and microorganisms. Carnivorous species eat insects, larvae, aquatic crustaceans, ants, and even small juvenile fish.
And anabantoids do show a lot of parental care for their young. This can be in the form of mouth brooding, similar to the cichlids, which we will cover in a later episodes. And then also probably better known for their bubble nest abilities. The juvenile fish, which are called fry, are sometimes cared for by both parents. A lot of the mouth brooders, the female will actually spit the eggs at the male, and then the male will hold them until then. In the bubble nest builders, it's only the male that actually constructs and takes care of the fry.
Yeah, it's a really amazing process. And we're here to talk about specifically Betta Splendens out of the anabantoids. Betta Splendens, they're a native fish of Southeast Asia. They're very popular in areas such as Thailand and surrounding countries. While bettas are often kept in small jars in those nations, to breed them, you're going to need a little more space. For breeding bettas, we definitely recommend a 10-gallon tank. We fill it halfway. This is less for the parents and more for the fry. Our experience demonstrates a higher survival rate with water changes of 2 to 3 times a week. They're going to need that fresh water. Also consider using some almond leaves or some other black water extract that you can find at your local fish store to lower the pH, add tannins to the water, and this is going to help prevent fungus on the eggs and on the fry.
And then also turn the temperature up to 80 degrees. This simulates the natural biotope for bettas. This raised temperature stimulates the breeding, and this actually contributes a signal to the male to start building his bubble nest.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of bubble nests, this is something that the male is going to construct. And during mating, the male will actually place each of the eggs, and there could be hundreds of eggs, into this bubble nest. And after spawning, the male will drive the female away, and that's where the eggs will develop into fry. To help focus the development of the nest, you're going to need to provide a target. We typically recommend using a foam cup lengthwise in half and then taped to the side of the tank. For some stubborn male bettas, an Indian almond leaf taped to the side also does the trick.
Place the male betta into the tank first, and this can be done as early as 12 to 24 hours prior to introduction of the female. And then when introducing the female, it's recommended that you place the female in some sort of container, like a quart container, and use a weight for stability, and using water from the breeding aquarium, and that way they can see each other.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to put up on the screen for our viewers a little video from one of my tanks of just that situation. A little bit more on breeding for this Betta Splendens is one male and one female should be bred at a time in the same tank. We shouldn't do two females or two males. Again, after you've introduced that male to the tank, a few hours later, after they've seen each other and they start to get into spawning mode, you can then place that weighted cup in the center of the tank. Again, that large deli style plastic cup weighted with marbles or gravel. Place in a lid with an air hole, otherwise that female might even jump out. It's happened to me. This cup is going to protect the female during the courting relationship from males' nips and attacks. Soon after, the male will see the female and begin to flare. They'll both darken in color, and it's something that you can watch in real time, and it's truly amazing. There's going to be chasing, evading once you've released the female into the tank with the male. And then over time, he's going to direct her back to his bubble nest. This might take another day or two for that bubble nest to be complete. She'll inspect it, and once it meets her satisfaction, she'll allow him to approach her, and the spawning will begin. The male will swim alongside, and then they'll cross mid-length in the shape of a T. The two will freeze and embrace, gently floating downwards. And the male's going to release her eggs, and the male will release his sperm. And this will happen multiple times over a 12 to 24 hour period. After each event, the female will temporarily swim off, and the male will pick up the eggs and place those into the bubble nest. You need to keep an eye as the fish keeper out for injury to either fish. Fins will inevitably be nipped and frayed, but remove the female immediately, even if either is injured. You can always try again at a later time.
Mm-hmm. And also keep in mind that a larger female can injure a smaller male, so you have to be careful when you pair them off. Add some Java moss and some other structure in the rear of the tank to allow the female to hide if she ends up being attacked by the male, or even vice versa for the male to hide in. And once mating is complete, the male will guard the nest and attack any fish, including the female, and it's best to place her in a tank of her own at that time. Some breeders treat immediately with an antibacterial and antifungal medication, even using salt in the course of in the amount of half a teaspoon per gallon.
That's right. So now that you have eggs in the nest, about 48 hours after mating, you want to remove the male. And this will prevent the male from eating the fry that's about to hatch. Some breeders will keep the male in the tank until the nest hatches completely. This is going to be based upon your discretion, based upon your knowledge of your male. In about that 3 days period of time, the fry will hatch, and you'll see their tiny tails wiggling around the bubble nest right at the edge of your water line. They will remain for the most part near the nest for the next day or so, and then they'll begin to swim around the top edge of your tank.
Betta fry are tiny. They swim at the water surface, and you need to select the right food for them. And while historically first foods were microworms, infusoria, imagine vinegar eels, which actually swim in the water column, would be another good food for betta fry, work really well. Ground powder foods work really well too, and golden pearls are what we recommend. We've successfully used 50 micron powder, and this should be the food that you want to use for the first 2 weeks. And you can certainly mix it with Hikari First Fry foods during the course of, after 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks. And then after that, you can switch over to baby brine shrimp, and that'll increase the growth of the fish tremendously.
It's very true. With powder foods, you're going to need to change that water. There's a lot of uneaten food that needs to be removed. That's why you need to change the water upwards of 3 times a week. You need to clean that powdered muck from around the edge of the tank and off the bottom. This will prevent ammonia spikes, which is going to be the main cause of death for your fry. Keep a sponge filter going while the fish are growing. After 6 or 8 weeks, you can move the fry to a larger tank. This is often what people refer to as a grow-out tank. This will increase the stability of your water quality and prevent overcrowding, and increase the likelihood of a higher percentage of your fry reaching maturity.
And then when siphoning waste from the fry aquarium, here's a tip for you. Use rigid airline tubing connected with flexible airline tubing, and that way you can siphon off the bottom of the tank without sucking out any of the fry. And don't panic if you end up siphoning one of the baby bettas out. Simply use a pipette or even like a turkey baster to gently pick the fish up, the baby fish, the fry, and putting it back in the aquarium.
You keep doing that week after week, you're going to have a successful raising of your Betta Splendens to maturity to show off to friends and family. This concludes our first episode. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again on the Fish Keeper Show.
Thank you.